All right, we're talking about plasma, Ethereum plasma. I think I want to try having this meeting be more like discussion based, because understanding plasma is going to require just asking a lot of questions and delving into it. Was everyone here for the lightning talk? I think everyone here, maybe not you. Were you here for the lightning talk? Maybe a month and a half ago.
I think so.
Okay, that's fine. Lightning is another second layer. This is plasma is a second layer solution. Lightning is too. So they're somewhat similar. Yo.
So Lightning is for Bitcoin and Plasma is for Ethereum, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, double check.
Are they analogs of each other?
Now, there's a more, the closer analog to Lightning and Ethereum is called RIT or Rated Network.
Oh, yeah.
Not talking about that here. Plasma is something that only Ethereum can do because it allows for certain types of state transitions, certain types of smart contracts that Bitcoin can't handle. I'm gonna close it. All right. So, does anyone remember what a second layer solution is? No? Oh, okay. The second layer is creating a contract on chain that the outcome of the contract can be determined through messages or data passed between parties off chain.
With high probability.
High probability, yes. Usually it requires, actually I think almost all of them, or all of them require both parties to watch what's happening on chain. Make sure that there's no cheating involved. That's one of the problems with these solutions. Plasma and Lightning are two of them. But Plasma is a cool twist because it doesn't create channels like how Lightning creates channels. The high level overview of Plasma is that we create a contract that anybody can join, and there's a contract operator. The operator is a centralized person that manages the contract. But whenever they behave in a bad way or they cheat, we can detect it. And everybody in the contract, if they see cheating going on, they will call an exit function and leave. So there's an exit process where you say, I have this amount of money, here's my proof. And a lot of times you want to exit if you see the operator cheating. We'll go into more detail. So there's kind of a deposit process to get money onto the contract, a way to send money to people, an exit process, and then a way to challenge exits. If someone's trying to exit, a lot of times you might want to challenge it saying, well, I'm the actual owner of those funds. Is that four different operations in Plasma make sense? Respond if you have questions. It's going to get complex.
So there's an exit, a contract, and then what else?
There's a deposit. So like if you have Ethereum, you can send the Ethereum to the contract address. What's really happening here is you're calling a function in the smart contract called deposit. And then you can send along with the function any amount of Ethereum you want in the contract for Plasma. And then once it's in the contract, you can use it to send to other people.
Oh, so unlike Lightning Network channels, you can send any amount of Ethereum after the contract has been set up?
Yeah.
After you enter
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
That's a big advantage.
Yeah, it's very cool. And the reason why we can do that, we'll show you more later on, but it's because smart contracts in Ethereum allow you to add data to them. They're updatable, whereas in Bitcoin, the contracts are very primitive. You can't add some data to a contract that's already exists. Yeah.
So what are these contracts for?
The contracts are for creating the rules of the game that the second layer solution operates under. And I know that that's a very high level way of looking at it, but a contract is a series of functions that can be called by anyone using Ethereum. Sometimes, yeah. And a contract also, it's basically a contract's a mini program.
Okay.
I don't actually like the word contract. It's more like a small program. You have code that's executed. The code can never be changed after the fact.
Okay.
Well, not directly, but maybe you can change it or reference to a certain function. But it's easier to look at it as, if you write code and you submit it as a contract, those functions, the code that makes up the contract is stable, it can't be changed.
So what's the second layer?
Second layer is creating a type of contract that can allow more transaction throughput. And the reason why it can allow for more transaction throughput is because users can send transactions between each other without having to put data on the blockchain. They can send transactions between each other by sending messages off-chain to each other. Now, I'm going to...
Basically, the idea is the second layer is tied to the first layer by means of the contract. And so by examining the contract that's on the blockchain and keeping track of all messages that are sent off-chain between the various parties, you can predict the outcome of the contract
Yeah.
with high probability.
So, yeah, so on-chain is filling up these blocks. And so, is everyone here familiar with what this means? If not, just let me know. Kenny, do you know what this kind of structure means?
No, but I don't want to like take everyone's time.
No, it's fine. This is the point of the club anyways. It doesn't matter. And it's really pivotal to understand plasma. So these blocks are chunks of data.
Yeah.
The blockchain is this sequence of chunks of data. Each one is called a block. And each block has a structure. A big part of the block, though, the most data that's in any block is the transaction portion. I'm going to label it TX. The transactions in the block take the most room, space in the block. But these blocks have to be sent around the network. It's a peer-to-peer network with thousands of nodes. So what the current problem we run into with cryptocurrencies is that you can't put too many transactions on chain. Since a block only comes every certain amount of time, in Bitcoin it's every 10 minutes, we can't have a gigabyte passing around.
Yeah.
We can only, right now it's only a little more than a megabyte passing around. So, that is a constraint on how many transactions we can process.
Okay.
The solution that Plasma proposes is, can we create a certain type of transaction that sets up a game that allows people to just send messages off, without using this blockchain at all, directly between each other. And if the messages are sent back and forth, these messages are enough to actually pass money, and I'll show you why they are. And then this is the really cool part. It really, it uses cryptography, this is why we can do it.
So two people can do transactions by themselves without the blockchain?
Right, but the key part is, the reason why they can do this is because we have a contract on chain.
Got it.
A contract is a special type of transaction.
Okay, that helps a lot.
Cool, yeah. Yeah. Anytime anyone asks those kind of questions, it's just no big deal.
So what's the difference between first and second layer here? I still don't.
Yeah, so first layer is the data inside the blocks, and also changes in the code of the people processing the blocks. Now, remember, we're in a peer-to-peer network, and each computer will receive all of these blocks,
Right.
and they'll process them in a certain way.
Yeah.
Any updates or anything we can do to help more transactions go through by either changing the code base of these guys or by changing the data structures of the blocks is called first layer or on-chain scaling.
Okay.
Second layer is basically saying, well, we don't really need to change the code base of the full nodes or the Bitcoin nodes or any cryptocurrency. We also don't need to change the block structure. We can set up some sort of game by using this, and then, this isn't going to be clear to you right now because I have to describe what that contract is, but just imagine there's a contract that will allow you to send a message to somebody else outside of this blockchain, and then just because you sent that message, they can broadcast the message that you sent them eventually onto it and redeem their coins.
Okay.
So you can send, maybe if Alice and Bob, A and B, Alice sends $5 to Bob. Bob doesn't need to tell anyone in the peer-to-peer network or put it in the blocks yet. He only needs to do it when he wants to close the contract, when he wants to get his coins out of the contract and be able to spend them. Is that closer?
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Cool. All right. So, all right. Now it's time to define the contract. And seriously, Plasma is so freaking cool. It's so cool.
It's got a cool name.
Yeah, it does. That's the point. That's the only reason why it's cool. Trying to figure out the best way to do this. So you can deposit funds. Okay, I'm not gonna do this. Okay, this is what I'll do. We're gonna redraw what I just erased. But I haven't. All right, here's the main chain. Let's say the Plasma contract starts here. This is literally just a program that describes, this is what it does. This is the Plasma. Okay, this thing's really cool. This just lays out the functions and the data structures. It's just a program that anybody using Ethereum can call, and when they call it, they'll reference a function here, and all the full nodes in the peer-to-peer network that is erased, all the full nodes will say, well, I know what code to execute, because the function that I need to look for is way back. It's not over here, it's way back in this block. All right? So, that's the Plasma contract. Now we have an operator.
Is it a smooth operator?
A smooth operator?
Mm-hmm.
What? No,
No?
it tries to steal and stuff. It tries to mess with the system. And
No,
also, it's the main operator of the system.
Then it's a smooth criminal.
What does this mean? No, it can't escape. It's always detectable. I'm not giving this move.
You've been hip hop, you've been strip hop, a smooth criminal.
Okay. Okay. Sure, Hector. We have an operator of the plasma contract. Each person that joins this contract, meaning they put money in the contract, will talk to the plasma operator. The plasma operator creates its own blockchain, but it's much different in structure from this main chain. The plasma operator creates small blocks. Actually creates a chain of them. And inside each of these blocks is the transactions that have been sent between these people, but only a very concise representation of them, called a Merkle root. So, this is very, very important. Very important. Does anyone who doesn't know what this is? Fine? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. That's fine. This is it's an integrity data structure. Merkle trees can take a bunch of data and put it into the size of a hash. And so if we have a tree, this is actually what it is. A Merkle root is the top of the tree.
No, the root is the bottom.
I'm drawing it upside down.
Why do computer scientists put the roots at the top of the tree?
Because
Have they never seen a tree?
this is how, I don't know, it looks better. I don't know. It looks better, right?
Okay.
Right.
It's like a pyramid scheme.
So, this is very, very cool.
Plus, it's mostly a binary tree. You know.
And we have data, but let's say we have 4 pieces of data. And we take a hash of them. Everyone knows what a hash is? Cool. And taking the hash of them outputs some other data. All right, so we take the hash of them. Now we have 4 hashes for 4 data pieces. Then we take these 2 hashes and we just combine them together and hash that. So this is this block is the hash of the hash concatenated with the hash.
You could just shorten it to
I'll label it A and B.
it's H of A concatenated with H of B.
Okay, yeah,
No, it makes more sense if you have A and B be the data.
you're right.
Why do you use those 2 lines for concat?
This is like standard concatenation terminology.
I had no idea.
Actually, I
Yeah.
thought that meant or.
That too. But yeah, it's
I guess just as plus can mean add or.
yeah, we can do +2. Might be even easier to do.
No, don't do plus. Don't do
Plus is like adding the numbers together. We don't want to confuse that.
Please don't do plus.
So okay, so we hash them. This is the hash of C. So this one here is concatenating these 2 and then hashing it. This is very important for plasma. And then, can you guys guess what this is?
The hash of those 2
Yeah.
concatenated?
Yeah. This root of the tree is what these blocks are. That's it. The block is just a root of some tree. This block is also some root of a tree. Each one is a root, that's it. All right,
So that means that if you want to change like one of the data parts, you don't have to rehash, like if you have, say, like, 128 blocks at the bottom,
mhm,
you don't, if you want to change the tree by updating, one or two of them, if you want to update one of them,
yeah,
then you'll only have to rehash at most 7 times.
right, yeah.
Because
So in this example,
7 is log base 2 of
what
128.
Hector's saying is if we want to change, let's just say we want to change this A to something else.
A prime.
We don't need to change this whole side
Yeah.
because what will end up happening is we hash this A, this new A, we hash it with the normal B, comes to this. This is new though. But then we go to this side, we've already done this before.
So you said the root is the only thing that are in these blocks?
Yeah, these blocks are just literally just a root.
Okay, so,
And the operator creates them. The operator is some person that's in control of the plasma contract.
so what are the things in the tree? What is the data at the bottom?
Get ahead of yourself.
Okay.
But actually, that's where I'm going anyways.
Okay.
Thank you. Cool. These data points are transactions. So we can this is how Plasma works. You deposit some money in the chain. Automatically after there's a deposit, a new block pops in. That's just one of the specifications says that. It's called MVP, minimum viable plasma. But when you deposit, a new block comes containing a deposit. This deposit says that some address, some person has some Ethereum. So some person has Ethereum at that point. Let's say they want to send it to somebody else. What do? They create a normal transaction. They sign. They do the normal transaction signing with their private keys. But what they do, instead of putting it on the main blockchain, they give it to the operator. Right? They give it to the operator. And the operator is the one that creates this tree. Now, I'm going to give you a sequence of how this works. Here's Alice. She has some money pointing here. We have the big bad operator, but actually they're not bad. With some hair.
The wants to be bad but can't operator.
Yes. We can call him Hector.
No, it's supposed to be Mallory. Like Eve or Mallory.
Or Oscar. Or Oscar.
Yeah, maybe.
Hector sounds pretty evil if you ask me.
Who wants to do Hector? Wait, Hector? Alright. Sorry. Alright, this is Hector.
I mean, Hector was the name of the villain in the Green Lantern movie, so can't really blame you.
Whenever I say the operator, can you start typing really fast on your desk?
I'll get out my computer, I guess.
Okay, so Alice wants to spend this deposit and give it to Bob. This is what she does. She creates a transaction and she gives it to Hector.
Oh, got a transaction.
And what Hector does is, every once in a while, he'll get a bunch of these. He'll get maybe, let's say 1,000 of these transactions. What he'll do is he'll create a Merkle tree where each transaction is a root. and he'll create it, and he'll submit the root here as a new block. So this contains Alice transaction. And I'll read that. This block contains Alice's transaction. Now what happens is, as long as Hector tells everybody in Plasma these transactions, they can create this root themselves. And they can make sure that nothing improper has happened.
Hey everybody, if you want to check my Merkle tree, go ahead and do it.
What I mean by improper is, well, what if Hector wants to just create money out of thin air? Well, what an attack could be is one of these transactions can give money to Hector's own address that he controls.
Sounds like a great idea.
The operator can just make money out of thin air, but we need people to check to make sure that's not happening.
I want to buy some new headphones.
Right? So what if the operator does it? What if the operator creates a transaction out of thin air? Well, Alice and Bob will notice it. This is where the third component of Plasma comes in, called exits. Once Alice and Bob notice cheating, and the cheating they can notice is because, let's say this one is a cheating transaction. They will notice that this transaction doesn't reference a original deposit somewhere. Meaning that money coming into the contract was not referenced. The money came from nowhere. So, what will happen then is Alice and Bob will call the exit function in the Plasma contract. And the exit function will, let Alice show proof of where her coins are, and Bob show proof of where his coins are. The proof is, the proof is, a block, one of these blocks, and the Merkle root path to show that a transaction is in a block. And you also have to show that that is valid to the beginning of the deposit. So let me be more specific here. Yeah.
This might sound very stupid, but what if like all three people are like what if it's one person on 3 accounts, and so then they're also the operator, and so they just make money out of thin air, and they control the other 2 people.
Oh, okay. That's a good point, except where is the money coming from?
You can't actually spend it
So
on
what's
the
happening
blockchain.
is when the contracts, whenever someone deposits money in,
Yeah.
the contract 5 Ethereum, they put it in the deposit.
Yeah.
And then what they do is they do this thing over here and they create a fake transaction. Well, what this fake transaction is doing is it's just saying that the person that can redeem this can withdraw.
Okay.
So you can imagine a Plasma contract has a little bank. You can see it as like a pot of money.
It's like your question is like akin to asking, well, what's to stop me from setting up my own bank and putting $1 billion into my own account?
Right, that's it. Yeah, they put money in, but when you take money out of the contract,
It goes back on
you
the
can only
blockchain.
take about the same amount of money you put in.
Yeah.
So they're never going to make more because they can't create it out of nowhere. They have to just reference something they already put into it.
The fear is that the operator will spend from the
Yeah.
contributors' funds.
Got it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good question. All right.
Do you actually have a slides?
No.
Okay.
Well, this is slides that I took from someone.
That's just a slide. Okay.
No, it's more.
Oh, there's more?
No, I copied more.
Oh, okay.
It's long, but it's like, I don't really like it.
Yeah, it looks kind of weird.
So
Like, what's with the strawberries on
Kinda
I
hungry.
don't know.
the...
This is actually from one of the main researchers of plasma, so. But this was back in February when they had minimum viable, see the upper, minimum viable plasma was
Yeah.
the first spec that got released.
I
So they were
guess,
talking about it. That's actually what I'm talking about here.
I guess that's why they're like a Ethereum coder and not a professional presentation maker.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Uh,
So any questions on this so far? Does this make sense somewhat? Basically, everybody in the contract is tracking all transactions go through, making sure everything's correct, and when anything faulty happens, they prove to the contract that they were the valid ones, they were the ones where nothing faulty happened before them, and they can withdraw money successfully, right when something faulty happens, yeah.
Now, this is like implying that everybody who's in the contract needs to be watching
Yes,
constantly. And that,
yes, that's a good point, and that's very inefficient.
it's the same thing with Lightning.
No, but this is, I did not bring into, this is the simplest minimum model. There are more complex models, which are the ones being talked about now, which reduce the amount of overwatch each person has to do by a ton. I don't know if I want to get into them.
But playing Overwatch is fun.
Shut up. I kind of want to just finish talking about this, and then if anyone wants to afterwards, I would love to talk about like what the efficient ones are we can talk. And I don't even know because all of them, but I know one.
What about Mimblewimble?
Stop. All right. Yeah, it's a good point. You have to literally watch every transaction. Oh, my computer's gonna die. I'm not even using it, but. Anyone have any questions?
Can you go over Mimblewimble?
No. I can't. I can't. So stop fucking with me. It's not,
What's Mimblewimble?
no. That was a more convoluted way of fucking with me. Less direct, but gets the same result. All right.
Dr. Retz is asking.
No, I'm not helping you.
Still have not figured
talk to Hector after.
Talk to Hector.
He'll confuse you thoroughly.
All right. All right. There's some other things that could happen.
One day Grindelwald will rule the world, and then you'll all be sorry.
This is an interesting extension of plasma. All right. Let's say there's 100 people in the plasma contract. 100 people. And let's say the operator cheats, and everyone in the contract realizes they cheated. What happens?
You call them out.
Call them out. Each one calls them out. Each one withdraws. Which means there's going to be a transaction on chain, 100 of them, all at once. What does this kind of mean? This is actually really interesting. This means that plasma can only be a few orders more scalable than the main chain. Why is that?
Because if your plasma sidechain gets too big, it could threaten to DDoS the main chain.
Right. Right. You can't even fit the amount of transactions you need to on the main chain, which means that an operator can cheat and get away with it actually, because not everybody can call them out in time. They have like 7 days right now to call them out. But what if 7 days of blocks are completely full? So,
And see, then the longer the lockup time you have for that, the less efficient it becomes as
Yes.
well. So if you want to try and scale it so that like, oh, instead of 7 days, let's give them a lock time of like 2 months.
yes.
Then if you actually want to withdraw your,
It'll take 2 months to get your funds
it'll
out.
take 2 months to withdraw anything.
Yup. This is
You don't
this is a problem, but they're starting to deal with this in better ways.
You have a
Yeah.
safety time trade-off.
But this is kind of like one of the overarching limitations of any second layer solution, that you have to have enough on-chain capability to process when someone, process the exits, or let to basically let transactions say, hey, you cheated on there, let me give you my funds back. That's cool. Okay, what about this? No, actually, I basically covered it.
That's why Lightning is not going to win.
Well, the thing with Lightning is that if a cheat happens, not everybody in a contract has to leave. Well, that's
yeah, I mean,
actually,
See, with Lightning,
actually, that's also not here.
with Lightning, it's more like each channel is a separate contract, and there's only 2 parties to it, right?
Each
So-
channel is a separate, yes.
So there, you don't really have that same problem. It's just
No,
like
it's not.
if you have a large number of channels, then it would be a problem. But it's just, it's a technical difference.
Yes. Yeah, right.
Well, what is the difference again between this and Lightning? Is it that
So with
we're
Lightning,
only storing the Merkle root? for
well, okay,
this?
with Lightning, there's actually quite a lot of differences. One thing is we can't have these blocks at all in Bitcoin. You know why?
No.
Where are these blocks stored?
And
They're actually stored in the main chain.
Or
Right?
like
So
inside the
what they're
contract.
actually doing is when it's a block submitted, it'll eventually be in one of these. And that's when a block inside of a block is confirmed. Okay?
So it's not really like a, it's a side chain that gets continually pegged to the main chain.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
how does that actually work? Because
Because you only have the Merkle root. The Merkle root is basically just a summary of all of the data.
so what,
Let's say if 1,000 people sent a transaction on Plasma. We completely made a new tree, which means we can have 1,000 payments processed with one little block update.
when does that go on the chain?
The operator submits it. The operator will just keep submitting them whenever they want to.
So if you notice that the operator cheated,
Yeah.
would that block already be on the chain?
It'll be on the chain, exactly. And it should be on the chain. And a cheating block is on the chain. So what happens is you submit an exit request. And the exit request is calling a function that's also on the chain, referencing a block that's also on the chain that's invalid. So this mini block is on the chain. The exit function says, hey, this block, well, what it's actually doing is saying, hey, I have, so let's say that this colored in block is the block where something bad happened. Actually, I'm gonna rewrite this. The block that something bad happened is this here. So we have a deposit, we have Alice sent money, and then we have the operator did something bad. What Alice does, or what Bob does too, when he knows something funky is going on, is these are already on chain. There's only one, so ignore this. Sorry, I'm rewriting a lot. So deposits here, this is here, this is here, all right? Then Alice calls the exit function in the Plasma contract. Submits proof that she has made a deposit. All right? And then people can challenge her request. So let's say that Alice gave all of her money to Bob and here. And what if Alice submits an exit claiming that she has money here? And what if Alice is trying to steal money from Bob? Because Alice can say, hey, I need a transaction here, and here's my Merkle proof, and here's my signature, and here's the block number. and then Bob actually has money. What Bob does is Bob sees that Alice called an exit on chain, because it's actually part of the block here. The exit's here. It doesn't get processed yet, it's just showing it's an exit. And Bob can say, well, I'm going to contest this exit, calls a different function called contest exit. Contest. And so Bob tries to contest, and what Bob does is shows his Merkle proof a block after Alice's, showing that Alice correctly gave the deposit to Bob.
So it's basically, it's like, you can always prove that you, if your balance is at the head,
Yes.
you can, or is at the tip, you can always prove that you have it, so you can contest other people's
Yes.
attempted exits.
Yes.
And that exit goes through.
Yeah,
7
so
days.
yeah, there's 7 days for Bob to say, yo, what the fuck's going on here?
Now, is that 7 days from when?
From when the exit's submitted on chain.
Submitted on chain? As
Yeah.
in-
So whenever you call a function in a smart contract, what's happening under the hood is that you're literally creating a transaction, and that gets put on the blockchain.
So 7 days from when it? From
7 days
once it
when
was
it's-
confirmed, or like not confirmed?
Just when it's on the chain.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, just when it's on the chain. So if we would have to have 7 days of blocks afterwards
Yeah.
until Bob can no longer contest. And once that exit is past the 7 day point, Alice now has the funds that she can spend. Again, it's out of the private contract.
But theoretically, it doesn't even have to be Bob who contests it. It could be anybody
Yes.
with access to the information.
And everybody does have access to the information
Yeah,
in this model.
right.
So yeah, it's a good point. All right, that's going to be the end of the official meeting, unless you have any questions. And then we can talk more about it afterwards.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
Questions up?
Is that a mini? Oh yeah, I thought you were doing like a mini violin.
Did everyone sign in? Did you sign in? Did you sign in BTC RIT?